Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network 6 days from Election Day. It is a race to the finish in the hour. President Joe Biden will be speaking about the power of democracy and it being at stake in this election. We'll also talk with Terrance Woodbury, who is, of course, the founder of HITS, a polling firm. He'll be founding a part of his strategies, polling firm, talking about the poll that he did that with, of course, Alicia Garza's group. We had her on yesterday. They gave some revealing information regarding black voters and the type of messaging that should be focused by candidates between now and Election Day to turn black folks out. Trust me, it's a conversation you do not want to miss. Also, a federal judge issues a temporary restraining order against a group monitoring ballot drop boxes in Arizona. Also, there were surveillance cameras that were actually watching the home of Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, captured the break-in on video, but no one was paying attention. Also, folks, I'll talk to the president and executive director of the Asian Americans Advancing Justice and the director of Latino Justice Racial Coalition Institute about the Supreme Court likely ending affirmative action. Why aren't Asians and Latinos up in arms about this? Why are only African Americans leading the fight? We'll talk about it with them. That and more. It is time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
6 days until Election Day. Early voting is taking place right now all across the country. It is ending in some places as well. What we are doing, folks, is examining what's going on. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to be in Texas. I'll be in Texas tomorrow. We'll be having an event there. Folks, looking forward to that. In Arlington, Texas. We'll be in Houston on Monday, focusing on getting folks out to vote. This fight for democracy. And so we'll give you those details a little bit later. But the question is, what will it take to drive black voters to the polls? African Americans could make the difference in U.S. Senate races in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in North Carolina, in Florida, in Georgia, among other places. But are they getting the right information? Are they getting the right messages? Are the dollars being spent to actually reach them? Well, Terrance Woodbury, partner with Hit Strategies, he got together with the Black to the Future Action Fund to deal with what they call the Black Voter Bulletin, Priorities and Satisfaction in North Carolina, Georgia, and California. This one-of-a-kind poll surveyed 1,200 black voters about their political and economic outlook. Terrance joins us right now. Terrance, glad to have you on the show. We always talk about this here, that part of the fundamental problem with the Democratic Party, they listen to white pollsters. When you look at all these polls and the surveys coming out, this poll here was specifically to African Americans. What were the key points that really jumped out at you that should get everybody's attention?
Absolutely, Roland. Thanks for having me, man. I was honored to partner with Alicia Garza and Black Future Labs on this very important research to understand black voters in the eve of this election. In the final stretch here, we conducted this poll about 4 weeks ago, so this is still very current, very fresh data. And what we're seeing is a couple of things. One, black voters are engaged, as always. Black voters remain the most loyal voting bloc in the Democratic coalition, but there's some enthusiasm gaps here. When you look across the diversity of that black electorate, this is a part of the value of a poll like this. Is it allows us to disaggregate black voters beyond just black voters overall. We get to look at black men and black women, younger black voters, older black voters, and frankly, we talk a lot about the gender gap amongst black voters, the difference between the way black men and black women are showing up. But there is a real and important generational gap between younger black voters under the age of 50, and older black voters. And that's where I think Democrats are going to have to really get laser focused in the final stretch to turn out younger black voters who have not turned up in this early vote the way that black seniors have.
And you're right. I mean, look, I pulled the data in North Carolina, the first day of early voting, and 55% of all those ballot casts were 65 plus. Then you went 55, 45, and I think it was about 12% total was 18 to 40. And really, that's about how do you reach them. You broke it down about the surge voters in 2020 and also messaging. One of the things that I thought was really interesting, you said that we have to change how we talk about this here. When we say repeatedly that black voters are the most powerful voters and can make the difference, that resonates and actually gets people more interested. Explain that.
Yeah, that's right, Roland. So in 2020, we started measuring the correlation between perceptions of power and vote likelihood. Big words like correlation get a little bit wonky for pollsters like me. So what does that actually mean? It means the higher they perceive their likelihood to vote. When we ask the question, regardless of how often you vote, how much power does your vote have to make a difference in your community? The higher they perceive that power, the more likely they are to vote. And so in Georgia, 73% of black voters in 2020 told us that they felt like their votes were extremely powerful, 73%. Well, in the same election, 72% of black voters in Georgia voted. So it's almost a 1-to-1 correlation. But since then, we've seen erosions in those perceptions of power, especially amongst younger black voters and black men, where those perceptions drop by 20 and in some places 30 points. Well, if that correlation holds, Roland, and we see a 20-point reduction in black men or younger black voters turnout, the same way we've seen a reduction in their power, then we don't stand a chance in the battleground state that you just listed. And so we're encouraging campaigns, candidates, and advocacy groups that are reaching out to black voters is to start with the declaration. Black voters are the most powerful voters in this country and will determine the direction of the nation, because it really is empowering and begins to remind them of the collective power that we have and not just the power of their individual votes.
Now, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, you said, don't use the phrase voter suppression. Why?
Man, voters, we sometimes we get caught up in some of the jargon of inside baseball. Voter suppression in we've done 200 focus groups since 2020, and a lot of them have been geared around the way that Republicans are changing the rules of engagement of how, when, and where we vote. Those rules have been changing, especially in the battleground states that you just listed: Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. In fact, I was in focus groups in Pennsylvania just 3 weeks ago in Philadelphia, where a black man told me, when I was asking about voter suppression and how concerned they were that voter suppression efforts would make it harder for them to vote, and he told me explicitly that if voting is going to work anywhere, it's going to work in Philadelphia, and that voter suppression wouldn't stop. And in fact, voter suppression is just a distraction. It's something that we dealt with back in the civil rights movement. Well, that is the perception that's associated with the word voter suppression. But when you start to list examples, when you start to name the efforts, the tactics that are underway, the lines are getting longer, the precincts keep changing, the purging of voting rolls where people have to keep re-registering, or the new ID requirements popping up state by state, or frankly, former felons in Florida being arrested for casting their votes. Well, these are all things that people are more familiar with than the perception of voter suppression from the 60s. And so we gotta raise the urgency of these things and remind them that today, efforts to make it harder to vote, which is what we should be calling voter suppression, just call it what it is. Efforts to make it harder for you to vote, and pointing at examples of those things and reminding them that this is not an effort to suppress every single black vote. This is not an effort to prevent all black people from voting, but it is an effort to make it just hard enough, to create just enough friction, to erect just enough barriers that just enough black voters turn around. And a reminder to your listeners that states like Georgia were decided by less than 12,000 votes. When I'm in Atlanta, I remind people that's like 3 Grady high schools. And that's the goal of these efforts, is to confuse, disorient, and to create just enough friction that just enough black voters turn around and go home.
So you're saying don't use the phrase voter suppression, actually say what they're doing.
That's right. Call it what it is. They are trying to make it harder for you to vote, and then show them examples. That's why your lines are getting longer. That's why your precinct keeps changing. Because when we name these things as examples, they become more vigilant to them. We call it voter vigilance. We start to raise the voter vigilance so that these efforts are less effective. And I'll give you one very clear example of this, Roland, where we can see it in the data, the efficacy, how this messaging works. It's in Georgia, right? Where for the past 2 years, voter suppression or efforts to make it harder to vote have not been a top 5, even a top 10 issue for black voters. Well, in Georgia, it's a top 3 issue because people like Stacey Abrams and groups like Fair Fight and New Georgia Project and Black Voters Matter and many others have raised the urgency of these issues, have kept it on the forefront. And as a result of that, we see Georgia, black people in Georgia, in gangbusters, record-breaking early voting turnout. That's because they're aware of these efforts of Brian Kemp and of the Georgia legislature, and their voter and the vigilance of those voters is much higher.
One of the things, a few more questions here that I really want to get to, and that is when we also talk about this poll in terms of what people are caring about. The reality is this here. Younger African Americans do not self-identify, unlike older African Americans, when it comes to partying, which means that the focus has to be on not the party, not the D, not the elephant, not the R, not the donkey, but really the focus has to be on the issues that they care about. What also jumped out at me, I get a bunch of people out here, I see them on social media, these yahoos going, oh, Democrats have not delivered to black people. Your survey, they say they have delivered on critical issues. Explain that.
That's right. That's right. So in a previous survey in 2021, in February of 2021, when the Biden administration and Democrats were just assuming power here in Washington, Alicia Garza, again, commissioned Hit Strategies to conduct a poll to begin to crystallize a black agenda, a black policy agenda. That meant we went beyond just asking black voters what issue was most important to them. But instead, we went issue by issue, gave them 10 policies and let them tell us, what do you want to see this administration do to combat climate change, or to advance criminal justice reform, or to ensure economic equality, or to combat racism? We gave them a list of policies under all of their top issues and let them rank order those policies. And what we have found since then is that the Biden administration has either achieved or initiated 80% of the black agenda. Things like replacing lead water pipes, banning chokeholds and no-knock warrants, creating a national registry of police misconduct, prosecuting Breonna Taylor and George Floyd's murderers. Check, 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 check. He's getting it done. I mean, this is an administration that has conducted more pattern and practice investigations. That is when the...
So these folks you surveyed, they are aware of those things?
No. Now, here's the problem, right? When we ask black voters, have their lives improved since Joe Biden became president? 73% of them say that their lives haven't. Either has gotten worse or stayed the same. But when we give them this list of progress, 90% say that these things would improve their lives. This is where the White House has a messaging problem, right, more than a governing problem.
There you go. And especially when you talk about the DOJ stuff, I have been yelling from the rooftops. I don't know what the hell they're doing. How are they not consistently talking about the great things that Kristen Clark and the Civil Rights Division have been doing, throwing these people, these wardens in prison, these cops, convicting them, the hate crimes as well. It's like you've done stuff, but you ain't told nobody, and you're not fully explaining it. And I've been saying that literally since the moment they walked in. I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
That's right. Merrick Garland's Justice Department has delivered on a black agenda, arguably more than any agency in the federal government. I mean, he's getting it done. He's conducted more pattern and practice investigations into police misconduct in his first 2 years than the last two presidents.
Let's roll it back here. So your focus was, what you're saying is, okay, they didn't know these things, but when y'all told them, they were like, oh, damn, that happened?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Roland. Two things happen here when we start to tell them about the progress that's being made. One, they don't know about it. They're surprised by it, but they're impressed by it. And two, they are very reluctant to give Democrats credit for it, right? And so this is the other part of the messaging. One, we got to tell them what we're doing for them. But two, we got to change the hero here. The hero is not Joe Biden. The hero is not Democrats. The hero is not some great white savior in Washington. The hero of this story, the hero that's saving the black community, that's advancing a black agenda, is black voters. We have to tell us how our votes are improving our lives.
Right. And that's one of the things that on this show, when we say, folks, you made that happen. Okay, you made the 50-50 Senate happen. You made the Democrats having the majority in the House happen. And so that's where you take credit for that. But again, though, it's people who don't understand. And look, and I just think part of the issue that you have right now, there still is just this focus. Let's go after these, white suburban women, thinking that's going to save the day. When the reality is getting out the core. It's 6 days left. Here's the most basic question. What can be said or done between now and Tuesday to turn black people out, especially young black voters? Is it too late?
Absolutely, it's not too late. A lot of folks, a lot of young voters, especially surge voters, Roland, and we talk about this a lot. When I'm talking about black voters, I want to be very particular about which black voters we're talking about. 65% of black voters are going to vote in this election, and they're going to vote the right way. We're talking about a surge voter who was a first-time voter in 2018, a first-time voter in 2020, maybe has never voted in a midterm. Well, for those voters, they're just tuning in. This election hasn't been going on for them for over a year like it has been for many of us. It just started getting loud when every single ad during the football game or every single ad during The Voice is about politics. Well, now they're paying attention. And now we got to reach them in the palm of their hand where we're most likely to have their attention. And we got to text them a couple of things here. One, we got to text them when, where, and how to vote. We cannot take for granted. I was in focus groups right after the Michigan primary with a bunch of black men who didn't vote in the primary. And I thought it's because they chose not to, Roland. Half of the black men in that room said they didn't even know the damn primary was happening. So we can't take for granted the when, the where, and the how to vote. But after that, we got to text them, what have we done for them lately? Not a bunch of promises about what we'll do over the next 2 years. We got to demonstrate progress for the last 2 years.
I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that that you laid out in the readout the other day that was so on point, which we talk about on this show all the time, is that folks voted in 2020. You get these surge voters in 2020. Then nobody talked to them. Nobody reached out to them. And they're saying that they're getting reached out by the Republican Party. So explain that, why you, because I always say the election is the end of one process and the beginning of another. How you can't just go, okay, that's it, it's over. No, it has to be constant messaging. I say this all the time, that all these black people who go to the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, AOC, okay, where are the alerts? Where are the policy announcements after the fact, where you're constantly letting people know what's going on? Not the fundraising appeals, the action items.
That's exactly right, Roland. I mean, look, it is not lost on me that I am, when I was in Michigan, asking those young black men in those groups, who's been contacting them, what politicians are they hearing from, who's texting them. 33% of black voters haven't been contacted by any candidate. 33% haven't been contacted by Democrats or Republicans. But even more striking, 50%, 49% to be exact, of black men and younger black voters have been contacted by both parties. 49%. This is the coordinated effort of Republicans to go after those younger black voters and black men. And so what we figured out after 2020, after the 2020 cycle, when we asked those first-time voters, well, what was different this cycle? What made you do it this time if you've never done it before? Well, the first thing they said was they wanted to defeat Donald Trump. He presented a unique threat. Well, we know Trump's not on the ballot this time. But the second thing they said was that we never stopped texting them. A part of why they were voting was because we were reaching them in the palm of their hand every day. Click here to access your mail-in ballot. Click here to find your polling place. Click here to encourage 5 of your friends to vote. But you remember, Roland, I talked about how that erosion of power, right? Since 2020, those same voters feel so much less powerful. Well, the reason they felt less powerful was because we stopped courting them. We stopped soliciting them. We stopped going to them every single day and telling them how important they were. The day after the election, those text messages started. Well, now they got to click here to access the 3 million jobs created by the infrastructure bill. And they got to click here to access a student loan forgiveness application. We got to put that in the palm of their hand, just like we did when we needed their votes.
The thing that jumped out there when you mentioned the information that has to be sent to them. I've been saying this, and I'm going to keep saying this even after the election. Black folks, stop giving to campaigns. I'm going to say this again. Black people should stop donating to political campaigns or to the Democratic National Committee. We should be giving our money to groups like Black Voters Matter, because or Alicia's group. Here's why: because the information that you're talking about, they can implement quicker and faster. These Black millionaires, these Black billionaires, these Black folks, stop sitting here saying, oh, we're going to send money to this candidate campaign. No, we've got to have, after the election is over, we've got to have 365-day messaging and campaigning, mobilizing and organizing, and not waiting for the election to come around. And so that means that we should be saying, hey, Black Voters Matter should have a $20-25 million annual budget we're contributing to, because what they can then do their own commercial that takes the data from your focus groups and from these surveys and put it into action. Because the problem we have right now is we have all this information, and then we go over here to these, frankly, let's be honest, the Democrat or progressive groups where these white strategists are in control of the entire apparatus, and they just ignore folks like you or Cornell Belcher or Ron Lester and so many others, and then they just go along and do what they do, and then all of a sudden, oh, let us try to come in and save their asses at the last second. I mean, look, all of a sudden, my phone has been ringing off the hook in the last 5 days. All of a sudden, I got, hey, can we run this? We got this ad. Can we run this? Can we run this? And I'm sitting there going, well, y'all been for 6 months. We were ready in March.
That's right. That's exactly right, Roland. You know, I cannot agree more that there are groups, these grassroots organizations, groups like Black Votes Matter, groups like Black Future Labs, but also local organizations like New Georgia Project and Block Wisconsin and Detroit Action, who have committed to year-round 365-day engagement. They're not engaging Black voters for their votes. They're engaging Black voters to empower them with what they need. Sometimes that includes their votes. Sometimes that includes a specific candidate. But during COVID, that included, can we help you get a vaccine? Can we help you get the medicine that you need? Do you need a ride to this job fair? That type of engagement. And frankly, political parties used to do that kind of engagement. And what's even more frightening, Roland, is that Republicans are starting to engage in that type of engagement. Mehmet Oz is driving buses around Philadelphia tonight, picking up Black men, screening them for cancer and other illnesses that disproportionately impact them. You know, Herschel Walker set up community centers across Georgia. Republicans are adopting a playbook that used to be unique to the Democratic Party or to labor unions. And so we got to invest in the organizations that are going to counter that year round and not just during election season.
All right, Terrance Woodbury. If folks want to actually go and look at the results of this, where can they go?
Please follow us on Twitter at T_Woodbury. That's T_WOODBURY. Also at HitStrat, HITSTRAT, and you have access to all of our latest data.
All right, Terrance Woodbury, I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland.
All right, folks, going to take a break. We come back. We're going to talk with my panel about
of course. Thank you, Darren.
There with Terrance and break this information down for you as well, folks. Again, it is 6 days until Election Day. Folks, make your vote count. You have the power to be the difference maker. I have said this in too many states. The number of Black people who are in Texas, who are in Georgia, who are in North Carolina, who are in Louisiana, who are in Florida. We should be, Terrance said there, that about 65% of Black people are going to vote. I have said our numbers need to be 75% of registered African Americans should be voting. We can be the difference maker. Unfortunately, and Gary Chambers has sent out a post showing how low Black turnout is in early voting there in Louisiana. It is abysmal. Folks, We can't talk about being the difference maker if we don't use the power of the ballot to do so. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Please support our Bring the Funk fan club. Send your check and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
It's time to know your rights. If someone is questioning your right to vote, call or text 1-866-OUR-VOTE. For more information, call or text 1-866-OUR-VOTE.
We've got to stand up. Republicans are banning abortion rights, tearing down democracy, blocking progress. But when Democrats stand together, we win. Because we voted, Democrats stood up for black lives, voting to ban police chokeholds, stood up for black women, putting one on the Supreme Court, stood up for our families, lowering cost of health care and prescriptions and capping insulin, and stood up for millions by slashing student debt. This November, let's stand up together and keep making progress.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
You know what's on the ballot. It's not just legislation and policies we believe in. It's democracy. Our democracy. There's a choice on the ballot between freedom and fear, between cruelty and compassion, between chaos and community, between voting or violence. And the end of rights generations have fought for. The extremists have a plan, a roadmap for a nation where your voice is silenced and your vote is a memory, where they count their votes and cast ours aside. That's why this year, this fight, this vote is so important. Register, engage, volunteer, fight back against the disinformation and despair, and most of all, vote, because your vote is all that stands between our future and theirs.
My name is Charlie Wilson.
Hi, I'm Sally Richardson Whitfield.
And I'm Dodger Whitfield.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
All right, folks, my panel, A. Scott Bolden, former chair, National Bar Association, PAC, lawyer here in D.C., Robert Patillo, executive director, Rainbow Push Coalition, Peachtree Street Project, Tammy Allison, attorney, as well, presidential pardon expert. Scott, you heard us, what Terrance said right there. At the end of the day, again, if you're not speaking to us in the right way, with the right messaging, it's not resonating.
I think the most powerful message was, well, two things. there's a big gap between black folks who are certain to vote and black folks who are most likely to vote, almost a 25% difference. I'd be real concerned about that. And secondly, in regard to engagement, the Republicans are engaging black men, and in part, 10 to 12% of them voted for Trump, and 10 to 12% of them are projected to vote for Republican candidates in this very important midterm. Think about that, and then I got a longer answer later on in the show.
Robert, look, Democrats, I don't know what the hell, they can't act surprised. Look, I know I've been saying that for 10 years now, you better have a black male strategy if you actually want to win. They ain't trying to pick up 20, 30%. They want to peel off a much smaller amount. Robert, go ahead.
Well, you're absolutely right. And for years, I think you were sitting in those meetings like I was, where you would get called everything from a misogynist to sexist to anti-woman if you said we need to be talking directly and specifically to black men. There's still time to do so. One, you have to invest in a ground game. You're not going to make that area up through flyers, through handouts, through TV ads. You're going to be knocking on doors. You have to talk to people where they are. Secondarily, you have to make it plain and make some promises. The same way that the Democratic Party could shift on issues like gay marriage, could shift on issues like abortion over the course of the last decade or so. We need to see that shift when it comes to aggressively talking about issues that affect the African-American community, talking directly and squarely about reparations, talking directly and squarely about the need for consecrated criminal justice reform. If you're not afraid to talk about everybody else's issues, don't be afraid to talk about ours.
Tammy, again, young voters, critically important. You can't treat them the same way you treat older voters. The old messaging doesn't work that way.
You're right, Roland. The old messaging does not work anymore, and we have to think about ways, especially to reach these younger voters. Generation Z, they're very, lazy. A lot of us have recognized that the work ethic is not the same, but that also goes into their effort to go out to vote. So that goes into play, the different ways of voting, not necessarily having to go to a polling location to vote, having ways to vote in other mechanisms so that younger people can be active in voting, so that they're getting their voices heard and knowing that their voices matter.
Folks, we're going to talk more about voting a little bit later in the show. I want to talk now about a critical issue. Went before the Supreme Court on Monday. Oral arguments were heard in the issue of affirmative action in college admissions. Nearly 5 hours of questioning from the justices. Based upon what we heard, based upon what we already know, we know that conservatives, they want to get rid of affirmative action. Clarence Thomas has been salivating at this opportunity to get rid of it. He asked one of the dumbest questions I've ever heard during the oral argument, saying, "Oh, can you define diversity?" I don't even know what that means. Jesus, what an idiot. Now, the lawsuit, of course, the plaintiffs of the lawsuit, they have been filing on behalf of Asian American students, saying that that these admission processes are discriminating against them. And so on this whole issue, we talk about affirmative action. We have to understand, even going back to history, President Lyndon Baines Johnson was the first one to use that particular term. When affirmative action came in, Nixon becomes president. Arthur Fletcher is known as the father of affirmative action during the administration. And so initially, it was targeting African Americans. But then, of course, it got expanded. And so other racial groups were actually included in it. Then, of course, women were added to it. And the reality is, when you look at contracts, the greatest beneficiary of affirmative action has been white women. Numbers don't lie, okay? So it's as simple as that. And one of the things that I have said for a very long time is that typically when we had fights for affirmative action, it's been African Americans who have been out front fighting this. Well, polling data shows 70% of Asian Americans support affirmative action, yet where are the loud voices? Where are the protests? Where are the organized efforts to actually stand up for affirmative action by non-black folks? Joining us right now, folks, are a couple of folks who I wanted to have on the show to talk about this very issue, and that is the representative of two groups, the President and Executive Director of Asian Americans Advancing Justice, John C. Yang. We also have the Director of the Latino Justice for the Racial Justice Institute, Francisca Fajana. Glad to have both of you on the show. John, I want to start with you because again, I remember I spoke to the minority airport concessions a few years ago in Fort Worth, Texas, and I said specifically to white women, when we're fighting these battles for affirmative action, where in the hell are you? I'm like, I don't see you. You're not at the news conferences. You're not out there alongside African Americans. And so, where's the mobilization of Asian Americans against this case? Because the reality is, this court is likely to get rid of race being allowed in admissions, and that's going to have and not just admissions, they want to target it in corporate America as well. This is going to have an adverse impact on Black folks, Latinos, and Asian Americans. Where are your followers?
Thank you, Roland. You're absolutely right about this. And you started off correctly, is that Asian Americans do support affirmative action. Approximately 70% of our population, based on polling that we have done, consistently show this. And actually, you did see this on Monday at the rally before the Supreme Court. You had a number of Asian American students, just a huge number from Harvard, from UNC, from other schools in this area, demonstrate their support for affirmative action. Now, I will be also clear about this. You are absolutely right that Asian Americans have not always shown up in the way that we need to. And so that is also our job to make sure that we do. The other aspect, though, I think we do have to recognize is that even when we do show up, sometimes the media does not want to portray that, because it is easier to have a story about how issues like affirmative action divide us rather than unite us. When the reality is that it unites us, it makes a better story to suggest that somehow different communities of color are on different sides of that V, so to speak. So we want to be careful about that reporting that is done. Again, I do see Asian Americans showing up like we haven't seen show up before. There's work to be done, but I believe that is being done.
Francisca?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Roland, for having me. And I'm glad to share the stage with John. His organization is one that we work with very closely, Asian Americans Advancing Justice. We work with them in the K through 12 context, and actually worked with them as well at the rally that John just alluded to on Monday in front of the Supreme Court. So, yeah, there is no question that Latinos support affirmative action. At least some of the data that I've seen suggests that a significant majority of Latinos support race-conscious admissions. And maybe more specifically, so we filed an amicus brief, a friend of a court brief in the Harvard and UNC cases. And we were joined in the brief that we filed by a whole range of Latino organizations, elected officials. We were all joined by organizations that represent the Medical Association, the Hispanic Bar Association, and a whole organizations that also do work in the K through 12 space and at the college and university spaces, all joined our amicus brief. So we had a whole range of Latino-led and Latino-serving organizations supporting our brief, in which we argued that race-conscious policies need to remain, and that this notion that the Constitution is colorblind is just ahistorical and not consistent with precedents construing the 14th Amendment.
But the issue that I have is, and trust me, I support the briefs, but the public doesn't see the briefs. What I'm saying, and again, this is an issue that I've covered for a number of years, dating back to my first internship at the Houston Defender in 1990. And I can tell you, this has been one of those consistent issues that I've seen in certain cities, depending upon what happens. And I can tell you, being a native of Houston, when they were trying to get rid of the city of Houston's affirmative action programs. I mean, the reality is the Vietnamese community in Houston has benefited greatly from affirmative action programs. Yet, unfortunately, when we see, again, the efforts to end the programs, when I'm seeing rallies, when I'm seeing protests, when I'm seeing the public pressure, I'm seeing largely African Americans. And so, and in fact, I wish, you talk about the rally that took place on Monday. I'm having my people look for the video now. And that's one of those things where I dare say, John, where your group, Francisca's groups as well, this is where you also are engaging Black media, where we're also showing up, because at the end of the day, if we don't know it even happens, then we don't know. This is also where I think y'all should also be challenging MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS saying, hey, y'all know we exist. Why aren't you covering this story as well, putting your voices on the air, showcasing these folks who say that they disagree with these people who are with Ed Blum with this lawsuit targeting the University of North Carolina and targeting Harvard and the other Ivy Leagues?
Yeah, if I might, I completely agree with you. And I think that has been a large part of our strategy over the last few years, in particular, since the Harvard and then later the UNC cases started, is making sure that the media has that right narrative. Because initially the narrative had been around how Asian Americans were the plaintiffs in the Harvard case. And let me be clear about this, right? If we saw discrimination, then we would have a different analysis. But it is clear that Asian Americans are benefiting from it. So we need to get that message across to make sure that people understand where we stand, make sure that we are visible in the ways that you have talked about, make sure that the media sees that we are visible in the ways that you have talked about. So I think there has to be a large strategy behind this. I think the other thing to say is that, look, I make no bones about the fact that for Asian Americans sort of organizing, we are still in this country, certainly the newer generation, right? And so in terms of getting us to show up at rallies, again, I'm not trying to apologize for our community, but it is a different organizing effort. As you know, it takes a great deal of effort to organize, a great deal of effort to show up, make sure that the community feels the need to engage. And that's part of the process that all of us need to engage in. I also very much appreciate what you're saying around making sure that we know that the Black media knows what we are doing, and making sure that we have news conferences that includes everyone as part of that process.
Look, going forward, Francisca, look, this ain't ending. I have a new book out called White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. And in that book, I talk about that. Look, these are not new battles. This is going to be continuing. They're going to continue this here, and this is not the end. There are 4 cases. They don't just want to get rid of race being used in college admissions. They want to target corporate America. They want to target every single initiative for all its flaws. For all its flaws, affirmative action has been one of the best ways to be able to advance the interest of minorities in this country. I remind people all the time, it's only been 54 years since Dr. King was assassinated. And the reality is, look, I'll be 54 on November 14th, and I was born into an America where I was not a fully free American based upon the laws in our system. And so if all of a sudden here we are in 2022, the Supreme Court guts affirmative action, and then these same white activists begin to target every other area, it's going to make it even more difficult for the basic advances we've seen thus far. And so there's going to have to be a dramatic uprising among Latinos, which will be the largest minority group by 2043, and Asians, and depending upon the city, because look, we saw what happened I was there in the state of Washington when you had a group of Asian Americans who actually were involved in getting rid of affirmative action in Washington state. And it was a battle there because you had Asians who supported it, but then you had other individuals who did not, and that led to that being pulled back. And so this is going to continue. And I think that there are individuals who would say, oh, we can benefit as individuals if we get rid of these programs, but collectively, the group is going to be hurt by this.
Yes, there's no question or doubt about that. And you're right about, other contexts in which these folks are pushing to end race consciousness. So in the K through 12 setting, where school districts are not even using race conscious policies and are using race neutral policies to equalize and expand opportunity for Latino and African American students, these folks are pushing back in that arena as well. So they are really striving for the so-called colorblindness. And I couldn't agree with you more that yes, we need to be pushing on all cylinders. Latinos need to be really out front, and we are. Our organization, Latino Justice, is very clear that we support race conscious admissions policies and we support equalizing opportunities in the K through 12 of context as well. We in coalition and in alliance with other minority-based organizations like the AAJC, as I said earlier, LDF, and a number of other civil rights organizations and community-based organizations are really out front and very, very clear that we support equalizing opportunities not only for all students, for all racial groups.
John, final comment. John, go ahead.
Sure. One thing I would add is it's not lost on us that after the Fisher case, Ed Blum specifically and expressly said he's looking for Asian American plaintiffs. That's part of their strategy, is to try to target a few Asian Americans and to get them to side with his side and suggest that somehow this is where the problem is. He's trying to divide us. Those groups are trying to divide our communities. And it's all of our jobs, and certainly especially for the Asian American community, to demonstrate that we are united on this, that race does matter. Race-conscious admissions in both university setting and K through 12 makes sense, and that's how we're going to move forward together.
All right, then. John Yang, Francisca Fajana, we certainly appreciate both of you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, bring my panel back into this here. Robert, Reverend Jackson led the Rainbow Coalition. He saw a long time ago how you have to have this multiracial coalition advancing and driving these issues. And look, that's what it's going to take. Look, I keep saying to folks, 2043, everything, Robert, is about 2043. That's what we're dealing with. And you got white Americans, they are trying to hold on to this power as long as they can, Robert.
You're absolutely correct, and we have to remember we've seen this before. If you look at what happened at the end of apartheid in South Africa, the former ruling party was able to entrench themselves in the judiciary, entrench themselves in the bureaucracy of the nation in order to maintain control, by leveraging the strings of power from behind the curtain. What we're seeing with the Republican Party is over the course of the last decade or so, they've decided to take over the U.S. judiciary. Donald Trump was able to appoint nearly 300 federal judges. We saw the theft of the seat of Merrick Garland and to create the 6-3 majority for Republicans. And they've made it very clear with the Dobbs decision that precedence does not matter. Stare decisis does not matter. They will be legislating from the bench. And I think that we're going to see everything that we consider to be the Civil Rights Act, or Civil Rights Movement, from the Civil Rights Act of 64, voting rights in 65, fair housing in 68, on down the line, be overturned in the next several years by this court. And we have to be ready for a legislative response.
Tammy, when we talk about, again, the attacks here, what we're talking about is law schools, dental schools, medical schools, not just undergraduate as well. They want to go after any affirmative action program in America.
They sure do, Roland. And you made that statement about the question that Clarence Thomas asked about him not even knowing what diversity was. But on the polar opposite, the newest Supreme Court Justice, the KBJ, the first Black Supreme Court Justice, asked a very poignant question. And she asked the question of the comparison between white legacy admissions to these types of institutions compared to Black legacy admissions. And going back historically, the legacy admissions of those that are white, they didn't have any oppressive systems preventing them from being admitted. Whereas when you look at a Black family history, they're slaves. So of course there's oppressiveness that goes into the descendants of slaves being admitted fairly into these types of institutions. And that was a very important question that she asked. And I think a lot of people missed that relevancy of that as to why affirmative action is still necessary so that underrepresented groups have a fair playing ground as it relates to admissions into these types of institutions, because that results in underrepresented groups having an equal shot at being in these types of professions as our white counterparts.
Scott, and again, when I talked about these lawsuits, they want to go after NASDAQ and some of the corporate rules as well, and that means they're going to be coming after law firms. They're going to be coming after all of these areas where we have seen advances as a result of diversity efforts. And I keep saying, these folks, they hate affirmative action, they hate diversity, equity, and inclusion, they hate multiculturalism, they don't like anything that was designed to fix the wrongs previously. They want to act as if we're all starting from the exact same page, which we all know is bullshit.
Yeah, it's not that they don't like it, it's that they don't believe it exists. They want a colorblind society with racism still existing. Law firms have a consciousness now and a sensitivity to it, but let's not be confused. The numbers in law firms and architectural firms and business firms, if you will, Wall Street, haven't really changed that much. It's interesting, it's a goal, but still, discrimination still exists. The fact that our numbers have not increased tells you there's much work to be done. Clarence Thomas doesn't ask the question about what is diversity because he really is dumb. He asked the question because he doesn't believe it exists, nor should it exist. So that's the quagmire we're in, but it's a false narrative. It's a false premise because racism is all around us. If you're white or Asian and you argue that you haven't experienced it, well, wait a minute. You're in a protected class. That's the core of affirmative action and the core of race discrimination cases. Now, if you're legacy, you're not in a protected class. And so there's a real dichotomy that you can't compare both of those. One has legal protection, the other one doesn't. And so it'll be interesting to see what this conservative court does with these two cases while in pitting Chinese Americans and Asian Americans against everybody else who's in a protected class. But my sense is that they're going to take a conservative view of it and they're going to do away with it. And then voting becomes even more important as we lead up to 2043.
All right, folks. Right now, President Joe Biden is about to speak on this election, as well as with democracy being at stake. This is a major address. Of course, he was in Florida yesterday at a rally last night, and he, of course, is now again talking about the importance to protect democracy. And let's go to him live.
The assailant ended up using a hammer to smash Paul's skull. Thankfully, by the grace of God, Paul survived. All this happened after the assault, and it's hard to even say. It's hard to even say. After the assailant entered the home asking, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" Those are the very same words used by the mob when they stormed the United States Capitol on January the 6th, when they broke windows, kicked in the doors, brutally attacked law enforcement, roamed the corridors, hunting for officials, and erected gallows to hang the former Vice President, Mike Pence. It was an enraged mob that had been whipped up into a frenzy by a president repeating over and over again the big lie that the election of 2020 had been stolen. It's a lie that fueled the dangerous rise in political violence and voter intimidation over the past 2 years. Even before January the 6th, we saw election officials and election workers in a number of states subject to menacing calls, physical threats, even threats to their very lives. In Georgia, for example, the Republican Secretary of State and his family were subjected to death threats because he refused to break the law and give in to the defeated president's demand, just find him 11,780 votes. Just find me 11,780 votes. Election workers like Shay Moss and her mother, Ruby Freeman, were harassed and threatened just because they had the courage to do their job and stand up for the truth, to stand up for our democracy. This institution, this intimidation, this violence against Democrats, Republicans, and nonpartisan officials just doing their jobs are the consequence of lies told for power and profit, lies of conspiracy and malice, lies repeated over and over to generate a cycle of anger, hate, vitriol, and even violence. In this moment, we have to confront those lies with the truth. The very future of our nation depends on it. My fellow Americans, we're facing a defining moment, an inflection point. We must, with one overwhelming, unified voice speak as a country and say there's no place for voter intimidation or political violence in America, whether it's directed at Democrats or Republicans. No place, period. No place ever. I speak today near Capitol Hill, near the U.S. Capitol, the citadel of our democracy. I know there's a lot at stake in these midterm elections, from our economy, to the safety of our streets, to our personal freedoms, the future of health care, Social Security, Medicare. It's all important. But we'll have our differences. We'll have our difference of opinion. And that's what it's supposed to be. But there's something else at stake. Democracy itself. I'm not the only one who sees it. Recent polls have shown that overwhelming majority of Americans believe our democracy is at risk, that our democracy is under threat. They too see that democracy is on the ballot this year, and they're deeply concerned about it. So today, I appeal to all Americans, regardless of party, to meet this moment of national and generational importance. We must vote knowing what's at stake, and not just the policy of the moment, but institutions that have held us together as we sought a more perfect union are also at stake. We must vote knowing who we have been, what we're at risk of becoming. Look, my fellow Americans, the old expression, freedom is not free. It requires constant vigilance. From the very beginning, nothing has been guaranteed about democracy in America. Every generation has had to defend it, protect it, preserve it, choose it. For that's what democracy is. It's a choice, a decision of the people, by the people, and for the people. The issue couldn't be clearer in my view. We, the people, must decide whether we will have fair and free elections, and every vote counts. We, the people, must decide whether we're going to sustain a republic where reality is accepted, the law is obeyed, and your vote is truly sacred. We, the people, must decide whether the rule of law will prevail, whether we will allow the dark forces that thirst for power put ahead of the principles that we've long guided us. You know, American democracy is under attack because the defeated former president of the United States refuses to accept the results of the 2020 election. He refuses to accept the will of the people. He refuses to accept the fact that he lost. He has abused his power and put the loyalty to himself before loyalty to the Constitution. And he's made a big lie an article of faith in the MAGA Republican Party, the minority of that party. The great irony about the 2020 election is that it's the most attacked election in our history, and yet, there's no election in our history that we can be more certain of its results. Every legal challenge that could have been brought was brought. Every recount that could have been undertaken was undertaken. Every recount confirmed the results. Wherever fact or evidence had been demanded, the big lie has been proven to be just that, a big lie, every single time. Yet now, extreme MAGA Republicans aim to question not only the legitimacy of past elections, but elections being held now and into the future. The extreme MAGA element of the Republican Party, which is a minority of that party, as I said earlier, but is its driving force, is trying to succeed where they failed in 2020, to suppress the right of voters and subvert the electoral system itself. That means denying your right to vote and deciding whether your vote even counts. Instead of waiting until an election is over, they're starting well before it. They're starting now. They've emboldened violence and intimidation of voters and election officials. It's estimated that there are more than 300 election deniers on the ballot all across America this year. We can't ignore the impact this is having on our country. It's damaging, it's corrosive, and it's destructive. And I want to be very clear. This is not about me. It's about all of us. It's about what makes America, America. It's about the durability of our democracy. For democracies are more than a form of government. They're a way of being, a way of seeing the world, a way that defines who we are, what we believe, why we do what we do. Democracy is simply that fundamental. We must, in this moment, dig deep within ourselves and recognize that we can't take democracy for granted any longer. With democracy on the ballot, we have to remember these first principles. Democracy means the rule of the people, not the rule of monarchs or the moneyed, but the rule of the people. Autocracy is the opposite of democracy. It means the rule of one person, one interest, one ideology, one party. To state the obvious, the lives of billions of people from antiquity till now have been shaped by the battle between these competing forces, between the aspirations of the many and the greed and power of the few, between the people's right for self-determination and the self-seeking autocrat, between the dreams of a democracy and the appetites of an autocracy. What we're doing now is going to determine whether democracy will long endure. It, in my view, is the biggest of questions. Whether the American system that prizes the individual, bends towards justice, and depends on the rule of law, whether that system will prevail. This is the struggle we're now in, a struggle for democracy, a struggle for decency and dignity, a struggle for prosperity and progress, a struggle for the very soul of America itself. Make no mistake, democracy is on the ballot for all of us. We must remember that democracy is a covenant. We need to start looking out for each other again, seeing ourselves as we, the people, not as entrenched enemies. This is a choice we can make. Disunion and chaos are not inevitable. There's been anger before in America. There's been division before in America. But we've never given up on the American experiment. We can't do that now. The remarkable thing about American democracy is this: just enough of us, on just enough occasions, have chosen not to dismantle democracy, but to preserve democracy. We must choose that path again. Because democracy is on the ballot, we have to remember that even in our darkest moments, there are fundamental values and beliefs that unite us as Americans. And they must unite us now. What are they? Well, I think first, we believe the vote in America is sacred, to be honored, not denied, respected, not dismissed, counted, not ignored. A vote is not a partisan tool to be counted when it helps your candidates and tossed aside when it doesn't. Second, we must, with an overwhelming voice, stand against political violence and voter intimidation, period. Stand up and speak against it. We don't settle our differences in America with a riot, a mob, or a bullet, or a hammer. We settle them peaceably at the ballot box. We have to be honest with ourselves, though. We have to face this problem. We can't turn away from it. We can't pretend it's just going to solve itself. There's an alarming rise in the number of our people in this country condoning political violence or simply remaining silent because silence is complicity. The disturbing rise of voter intimidation, the pernicious tendency to excuse political violence, or at least trying to explain it away. We can't allow this sentiment to grow. We must confront it head on now. It has to stop now. I believe the voices.
Folks, President Joe Biden speaking at Union Station here in Washington, D.C. Look, the reality, in order to do what he's talking about, Robert, is real simple. That means massive turnout. And the reality is, when you look at this enthusiasm, obviously you've got these MAGA people, you've got folks in Arizona and New Hampshire, these right-wing folks. They are sucking up to Trump. They're sitting here, you know, that they desperately want to be in charge. You've got these independents out here who are blaming Democrats for the economy, even though we're dealing with worldwide inflation, you name it. And I keep warning people, and let me go ahead and say it now, hashtag, we tried to tell you, if these people, if these idiots, if a Kerry Lake wins in Arizona and a Blake Masters, if that dumbass Herschel Walker wins in Georgia, if that fool Bolduc wins in New Hampshire, if Joe Budd, Ted Budd, if he wins in North Carolina, we send that idiot Ron Johnson back in Wisconsin. I mean, we're talking about crazies. Look, if the Republicans get control of the Senate, who's going to be over the Senate Health Committee? My God, Rand Paul, who has sucked up to Donald Trump more than anybody else. What these people want to do, what they want to do to this country is going to be devastating. And everybody who stays at home, you can't say a damn word because you didn't do anything about it.
Well, you know, Roland, it's interesting. On my show, we call it the MAGA mind virus because it seems that it just infects people and then takes over their upper brain function to the point that they go from a mild-mannered, regular human being to one of these mindless MAGA zombies. You know, Kerry Lake was a normal news reporter 5 years ago. She voted for Obama. She did events for communities. And now she's turned into one of the most vehement, anti-Semitic, racist, insane MAGA people in the country.
Hell, wait a minute, Robert. I'm going to try to find the video. Even a Fox News poll of viewers said her positions are extreme. Now, damn.
And that's the point. When these people get infected with this MAGA mind virus, it takes over their auditory functions. They are no longer able to function as human beings. And the reason I bring that up is that speech from Joe Biden was a great speech for an audience that no longer exists. He's trying to talk to these white moderates in suburbs. He's trying to talk to these older people, the JFK voters, the boomer generation, about Social Security and Medicare and bringing the nation together for the good of the country. That America's gone. It does not exist. And campaigning to it, I know that it may tug at our heartstrings like we're watching The West Wing, but in reality, this is tribalism that exists now. This is a battle for the nation's very soul. And we have to be talking to the voters that are actually reachable, who are actually going to turn out, and who actually exist in the modern context. Use that speech to reach out to those African-American voters that you need to turn out in record numbers. Use that speech to talk to those young voters you need to motivate on campus and around the country. But talking to this imaginary Rust Belt, Ma and Paul just got back from the coal mine and they may or may not vote for a Democrat, I'm going to reassure them that voter doesn't exist anymore. They've gotten the MAGA mind virus. They're not coming back. Campaign to the votes. Campaign to the people who are actually going to vote for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the people.
Scott, go ahead.
The people who you just named, Robert, they get so much of that, they don't need the speech. I was like you. I'm listening to this great speech and I'm thinking, who is he talking to? Because the people who he's trying to change their minds, these white suburbanites, educated or otherwise college educated, even at their core, you know, they are fearful of 2043. And so, you know, listen, guys, you know, the other thing is our democracy is not guaranteed. It's been around for 25 years or more. That's a phenomenal experiment. You know, if you look at every other country in the Western world, whether it's democratic now or not, most of them were autocratic at various times over the last, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years. And so America has been blessed that we believe in the rule of law. But half of America doesn't believe in the rule of law anymore. They believe in political violence, right? There's going to be a war, a civil war, a race war, the closer we get to 2043. In fact, I think Roland may have said it and others have, we're in a political civil war right now. And those white voters that the Democrats keep courting aren't coming back. They haven't been with us, elected a white president or a Democratic president since LBJ. And so the Democrats play a key role in bringing this country together by acknowledging their core voters that are black, brown, and gay, versus trying to go get those white voters, whether middle America, rural America, college educated or not, who are not with the Democratic Party, who are Republican and not coming back because the Democratic message may help them, poor or middle class, but they don't believe that the Democrats are talking to them. When they hear Biden's message, they believe that Biden is talking to the core Democratic voters, black, brown, and gays, and even the Republicans understand that. Yet the Democrats run from that. They spend all their money trying to chase middle-class white voters who they're never going to convince. And so, great speech, I think is necessary, but it is going to be far harder every day, well, no matter what happens in the midterms and stuff. I believe political violence is going to become an acceptable norm, and we've got to defend ourselves physically as well as intellectually.
Well, Tammy, the thing I'm talking about is not even really, my focus is not even political violence. What it is, and Robert laid it out, and that is these maggots, and that's what they are crazy and deranged. What Donald Trump, and this, he took it out of the page of Hitler. When you demonize truth, when you demonize the media, you literally could be saying the sky is blue. And they'll go, no, it's not. The sky is not blue.
All facts.
The sky is absolutely black. And you're like, fool, look up. Nope, that ain't blue. They will believe whatever this nutcase says. And then what happens? Then you have people like Chris Christie, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, Ted Cruz, and on and on and on. Individuals who, if you talk to them privately, they likely will tell you how dumb of an idiot Donald Trump is. But they crave power. They absolutely crave power. And by them craving power, it's all about who is in control. I look at the feed of Eric Erickson, right there in Georgia. Robert knows him well. Radio talk show host. He's always talking about Christianity and morals and values. He is so pro Herschel Walker, it's as if none of the stuff mattered. Dana Lash, same way. They do not, this is what Democrats are going to have to understand, and progressives are going to have to understand. These people are immoral. They do not care about morality. They do not care about principles. They do not care about ethics. They do not care about character. They care about winning. And that's all that matters to them. And when you are facing somebody who doesn't care about morals, values, ethics, and principles, and all they care about is power, well, you damn sure better be as ruthless in opposing them, because they will run the table, Tammy.
Absolutely, Roland. And, you know, there's a lot to unpack with a lot that you said. But the main part of what you just stated is, how did we get here? And if we really think about how we got here, you got to go back in time to 2013, Roland. 2013 is when Shelby County, Alabama sued the Department of Justice when the Democratic Eric Holder was the Attorney General and Barack Obama was the president. The Democrats were in control back then, right? So whenever Shelby County, Alabama sued the Department of Justice, that was attacking Section 4B of the Voting Rights Act and taking it out. That's 2013. Democrats are in power. The Supreme Court decision said it was unconstitutional. So in 2013, it could have been addressed right then and there as to how to make it back constitutional by making a minor change to define what was discriminatory in that Section 4B in Shelby County, Alabama, in order to restore that portion of the Voting Rights Act. Oh, not until the Republicans started getting smart and figuring it out, and the state started doing this really wishy-washy stuff of this voter suppression that earlier in the show we were told not to use the word voter suppression. Let me break down what the voter suppression is. Whenever the Republicans in these states are switching up the laws in order to let underrepresented groups not vote or come up with weird laws and requirements for them to vote, that's going back to that Supreme Court decision in 2013 where the Democrats are now, currently in 2021, trying to scramble to figure out how to close that little loophole. Newsflash, that loophole has been open since 2013. That's why these midterm elections are so important, so that we can have people like Jasmine Crockett in Texas District 30 that can come in as a freshman congresswoman that has a legal background, that understands how the legislative branch also works, so that we can have some change, so that we don't see these quote-unquote crazy things happening anymore. We can start talking about the For the People Act, which is separate and distinct from the John Lewis Act. For the People Act is exactly what you're talking about, Roland. Essentially, all it means is that we're going to have ethics and professional responsibility in order to ensure that the voting system in this country remains pure and it remains a system in which we can rely upon and people are not lying and doing all the types of wishy-washy things that we're talking about that results in those MAGA people and the quote-unquote crazies here. So we really need to talk about what the Democrats can do, not only whenever things are not going our way, but when we are in positions of power, having people in these positions of power that understand what's going on and understand how the different branches of government work together so that we can have a solution instead of just keep talking about the problem.
Well, and that's why earlier, Robert and Scott, I said when Terrance Woodbury was on, and I mean this, I absolutely mean this, and that is, black folks, don't send money to any political campaigns. We must be funding our own institutions, and that's the people who are on the ground who are going to be speaking to our interests. And we should be sitting here right now saying, okay, Cliff and Latasha, what's your number? What are you trying to hit? Is it 20 million, 25 million? What's the number? Because when we start talking about what the issues that matter to us, when you hear the phrase, ain't nobody coming to save us, it's just us, I'm telling you. And I'm trying to warn all these people. I see y'all in the chat. I see y'all on social media. I sat there on the set at CNN in 2010. And Eric Erickson, Robert, was happier than Jerry Falwell Jr. when the pool boy came by. Because the Republican route that night was unbelievable. And let me remind everybody watching and listening, Robert, what happened after the midterms in 2010? They immediately moved to start shutting down polling locations, enacting voter ID. Lines got longer. They began to use their power to start cutting civil rights. They began to use their power. And when I say power, they took control of governor's mansions, the House and the Senate. And all of a sudden, they now had complete control on the state level. You've got right now the Democratic governor in Wisconsin. The Republicans have gerrymandered Wisconsin so much that they are close to a veto-proof majority. So no matter what he does, they can veto everything. The governor, the Republican who's running against the Democrat in Wisconsin, has said, if I win, we are going to make sure no Republican in Wisconsin ever loses again. He said it out loud.
Wow.
And so all y'all folks, all y'all in North Carolina, let me remind y'all what happened. 2008, folks finally got the voting numbers in a massive, North Carolina used to have one of the lowest turnouts. Then they had one of the highest in 2008 because Obama ran. He wins North Carolina by 14,100 votes. 2010, midterms. They take control, gut the laws, gut early voting, put in voter ID. It was so bad, Robert, Colin Powell went to North Carolina and chastised the Republican governor who was sitting right there in the audience because of their voting laws. And it has taken 12 years to claw back where they were pre-2010. So, Robert, folk watching can play the game all they want to. But I'm telling you, the world that we're going to see post November 8th, if Republicans expand power in state legislatures, governor's mansions, House and the Senate, folk gonna be like, damn, I wish somebody told us. We did, Robert.
Yeah. And that's exactly the point that we have to address with individuals. I know that there's often consternation letting the perfect be the enemy of the good when it comes to politics. But at the end of the day, this is an existential threat. These are not the Republicans of 10 years ago, not the Republicans of 20 years ago. Just think of the fact that people like Eric Cantor and John Boehner and Mitt Romney, et cetera, are entirely too liberal for the current Republican Party. They call those people rhinos.
Christine Whitman, the former new governor of New Jersey. They like, oh, no. She might as well be the devil.
So it's not this situation that used to be where, I may be fiscally conservative and socially liberal. I'll figure out somewhere in the middle. These people are a threat to humanity. If you need any example, look at what's going on. Look at what's going on in Europe. I know America always likes to think that we live in this space station and we're not associated with the rest of the world, but there is currently a wave of right-wing fascism sweeping Europe nation by nation. The Tory party in England, and the Conservative Party, is moving further and further to the right. We talked about Giorgia Meloni in Italy. We talked about Erdogan in Turkey. We talk about Lukashenko.
Wait, Israel about to put Netanyahu and the right-wing government back in power.
So what we're seeing here in America, is we're pushing back against this international wind. Look at what just happened in Brazil this week with the election of Lula and Bolsonaro not stepping down from power. These right-wing forces are working around the globe. This is a very 1914 type of standing. So when we talk about the importance of this election in particular, we are literally talking about the future of the world in front of us right now. So yes, I wish they would talk more about some of the issues that I would like. I wish they would act on those faster. But when you are looking at the question between whether or not we will have a functioning democracy or whether or not we're going to be have riots in every capital around the country for every election, you have to start realizing we got to start fighting back now. We are late to the game, and we can't get further behind.
Scott, go ahead.
Roland, regardless of what happens on November 8th, the issues we're talking about, and we always talk about on the show, is where we go from here. Because even if we're able to hold on to the Senate, we lose the House, we've got a Democratic president. 2 years from there is going to be a whole nother round of elections. And I'm not convinced we will have this issue of voting solved by then. And it really, I think after the midterms, we need to have a very broad but inclusive conversation in our community, our national community, about how we stop having these conversations like we're having now and fix and address these issues so that Black people will be stronger as we move towards 2043, including other protected classes, our Latino brothers, our sisters, and our Asian brothers and sisters, how we get on the same page. Because one thing you see as we have these discussions and we move towards the midterms and, you got this wave of fascism, is the protected classes of people. I don't like the term minority, so I say protected classes of people the GOP is pitting us against one another. What do we do about black men voting Republican through Black Men Vote, which is a new organization, relatively new organization that's out there and working to get black men registered and make sure they get to the polls. And so there's got to be this broader leadership conversation to resolve some of these issues versus us talking about them and identifying them, you know, on a national basis, a national dialogue on it.
Folks, this is, I'm telling you, I'm just come right here. Give me camera 7. Listen.
You got to get behind the podium.
I'm telling y'all, no, I don't. No, I don't. I'm telling y'all right now, y'all. It is 7:36 p.m. EST here on Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. If Republicans get control of the House and the Senate, all the stuff y'all black folks say y'all want, you can kiss all that goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you right now.
They coming in hell bringing.
Y'all can sit here and yell, holler, scream, time by oh, they the same. Y'all can try all y'all. I see y'all fools, old Jim Crow Joe. Y'all can try all that y'all want to. I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you right now. Bye-bye. I'm telling you right now. If these maggots win on the state level, and they win, if that fool, if J.D. Vance in Ohio takes that Senate seat, and Bolduc in New Hampshire, and Walker in Georgia, and Bud in North Carolina, and Johnson in Wisconsin, and Rubio goes back in Florida, and Paul beats Booker in Kentucky, and that fake country boy accent Kennedy in Louisiana beats Gary Chambers. I'm telling y'all, the America that you think they want will be worse than what you think. These people are dangerous. And I know these loudmouth, so-called black media, new black media, wannabe black media, YouTube folk who never show their faces. There you go, trying to scare black people. All y'all so-called black agenda people, you will be completely ignored. And when they have power, they will use power. And then y'all gonna be saying, well, I wish somebody had told us. Roland Sebastian Martin, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, told you silly asses. Hashtag, we tried to tell you. So don't act confused when it happens. I'll be right back. Download the Black Star Network app, folks, on all platforms, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, please join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. And so please send your check and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo is RM Unfiltered, Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And of course, please get my book. I called it. Everything that you have seen for the last 13 years, I've been saying it when I was at CNN, TV One, Tom Joyner Morning Show. Folks were like, oh, Rolly making a big deal out of it. That's called prophetic. It's called prophetic. The book is called White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available, Ben Bella Books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, IndieBound, Bookshop, Chapters, Books A Million, Target. You can also download it on Audible or order through your favorite black bookstore. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Exercise your right to vote. If the lines are long or you're getting turned away, call or text 1-866-OUR-VOTE. For more information, call or text 1-866-OUR-VOTE.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
We've got to stand up. Republicans are banning abortion rights, tearing down democracy, blocking progress. But when Democrats stand together, we win. Because we voted, Democrats stood up for Black lives, voting to ban police chokeholds, stood up for Black women, putting one on the Supreme Court, stood up for our families, lowering cost of health care and prescriptions and capping insulin, and stood up for millions by slashing student debt. This November, let's stand up together and keep making progress.
Know your rights before you vote. If you have any questions or a problem voting, call or text 1-866-OUR-VOTE. For more information, call or text 1-866-OUR-VOTE.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hey, I'm Antonique Smith.
Hey, I'm Arnez James.
Hi, this is Cheryl Lee Ralph, and you are watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered. I mean, could it be any other way? Really? It's Roland Martin.
Jaleesa Williams left her Houston home on October 22nd, 2022, and has not been seen since. The 17-year-old is 5 feet 7 inches tall, weighs 135 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Jaleesa Williams should call the Houston Police Department at 713-884-3131, 713-884-3131. All right, folks. A federal judge has issued a ruling in the case of these right-wing extremists who have been monitoring ballot drop boxes in Arizona. They have been wearing their fatigues, strapped with gear, frankly scaring people. A lot of people have been really upset because they've also been filming people as they vote. Well, Judge Michael Liberty granted the restraining order on Tuesday after witnesses took the stand to justify the order. The temporary restraining order will bar the group from following, verbally engaging, or posting photos or videos online within 75 feet of the Dropbox location and ban the group from wearing body armor or openly carrying weapons within 250 feet of a Dropbox location. The League of Women Voters of Arizona, Alliance for Retired Americans, and Vote Latino filed lawsuits against the Dropbox monitoring groups last month. One case showed a connection between the poll monitors and a QAnon-linked group, Clean Elections USA. Despite no evidence to support the claim, the far-right group's leader has been posting to Donald Trump's Truth Social about alleged ballot mules or people fraudulently voting as other people. Again, they will lie, they will lie. They will lie. This is what they do, y'all. You know what? And I'm gonna say this here, Scott, I'm gonna start with you. Remember when Fox News lost their damn mind, especially old crazy-ass Megyn Kelly, when a couple of new Black Panthers were actually at a black polling location? They were like, oh my God, this is confusing. I'm telling you, and I asked Brianna the other day, the sister in Texas, and I'm just a firm believer in this here. I believe that some black group should be mobilizing black people to be election monitors and send them to these nearly white precincts. Look, if these white folks want to sit here and intimidate us, what's going to happen all of a sudden if you got some beret-wearing brothers in leather standing outside these polls? Look, hey, again, Scott, if we gonna swing, you gotta swing. And trust me, because see, that's the deal. If all of a sudden you start sending some black folks into these white areas, they're gonna be like, oh, well, what's going on? Well, change that damn law then.
Well, conceptually, that makes sense. But I don't want to get any of our young brothers killed.
That part.
By white police officers in suburban America.
Hold on. If the white folks can roll their guns, hey, it's open carry now. Wait a minute, it's open carry in Texas.
But it's different, bro.
I know Robert got his gun right under his chair right now.
But it's different. You send them young brothers in there with berets and dark glasses, looking like Huey Newton. I'm gonna tell you, when the police show up, they're gonna be scared. They're gonna think they armed, and we're gonna have a tragedy. So I understand what you're saying, but this case, don't miss the power of this case. This same judge ruled 2 or 3 days ago that against the TRO and said that this group was not offensive, or better yet, that they were not, that they were exercising their First Amendment. They had berets on, they had military fatigues on, they had guns, and they were standing there intimidating people. How much more intimidation do you need? You don't have to verbally abuse them. 3 days later, they took testimony from individuals who voted, and then the judge said, I'm going to issue the TRO because we have more substantive information. The only substantive difference was that he took testimony from people who actually voted and said they felt intimidated. You didn't really need that testimony to feel intimidated. When you saw it on TV, you felt intimidated, right? You felt that these were intimidating people. They've got guns, fatigues, it's more than one, it's dark, they're in a pickup truck, right? And so the mindset of this judge and how much you had to show because of their alleged First Amendment, we had to issue the TRO and narrowly tailor the infringement on their First Amendment. But it shouldn't even been a First Amendment issue. It should have just been a crime, but it wasn't. And so ultimately the judge did the right thing, but this white conservative judge conceptually, privilege-wise, just believed this was okay. This didn't cross the line, and it crossed the line in everybody's mind just looking at it.
But see right there, Tammy, why I keep trying to explain to all these simple Simon black people who get upset with me, why your ass got to vote. The judges that Trump put and the Republicans are putting in are the ones who are ruling like this. Just like the Trump judge in Mar-a-Lago. And so for the fools who say, oh man, I don't know why you keep rolling, you keep bringing up Biden and these judges. Well, dumbass, that's who appoint the judges. The Senate confirms the judges.
That part. And I think that, as you stated, these judges that the Senate confirms after the president elects federal judges, let's be very clear, these federal judges sit on the bench for a lifetime tenure, their whole life, okay? They're not going anywhere until they die, okay? So what's so important is this judge here, he granted this temporarily. This is a civil matter. Now let's talk about it in the criminal sense. Federal judges that are appointed on the bench, anybody that has a federal conviction, if they're going for post-conviction, post-sentencing motions, that's going right before the same judge that sentenced them because, again, they have that lifetime tenure. But even if we're talking about judges that are not federal, the local election judges are also important because similar type of issues are being brought before these judges. And the judges at the county level, the state level, state appellate levels and Supreme Court levels, it all goes into play into how underrepresented groups are being mistreated and abused.
Look, I just keep walking these folks through this here, Robert, and they need to understand what, again, what's going on here. The intimidation efforts, they're real, and you have to understand. And look, I'm already hearing you, Robert. Longtime people who working in the polls, they're quitting. They are under duress. You've got these right-wing folks questioning every move, challenging them, saying, y'all looking at people as they vote. And these are hard-working public citizens, and they saying, enough is enough. We don't need this crap. And so we're losing highly qualified poll workers because of these right-wing zealots, these maggots.
You're absolutely right. And if you look at most of the videos we've seen, these people, and we had a conversation about this on my radio show on Sunday, these people mainly are there, the camouflage on, it looks like level 2 body armor, so they're really not plate armor, it's usually the flexible armor. So I've been recommending to people to upgrade your everyday carry. Instead of your 9mm, given the current times and conditions, consider a 5.7 by 2.8. They have the FN 5.7, the Ruger 5.7, even Rock Creek has a new 5.7, and get green tip ammunition on it, because that can actually penetrate that soft body armor that these people have been wearing around now, because what they think is that you're going to have your normal hollow tips and it's going to expand and mushroom on impact and they'll be fine. That's what the Buffalo shooter was considering. But in reality, if you're carrying your 5.7 with the green tips, they're going to understand real quick that you understand the Second Amendment just as well as they do.
That part.
How are they going to know that you got green tip bullets if they're in the gun, Robert?
I don't even know what the hell Robert just said. I don't even know.
That was a lot.
I don't even know what the hell Robert just said.
It was a lot. It was a lot, Roland. It was a lot. And what Robert just said, like, let's be very clear. I don't need anybody to hit me up
I don't even know.
about a pardon. You cannot have a firearm if you have a conviction at the state or federal level. Please. Stop.
My point is,
Robert don't care.
These people are showing up at the polls with body armor on and tactical equipment. I would recommend that you may want to invest in the same thing. You know, you're probably not going to talk them out of it once they get started in whatever they're doing. So I'm just advising people to be ready, because if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
That part, true.
Hey, Roland, Roland,
what?
your boy say they got their shit. You bring your shit.
Oh, Lord.
there's your war. There's your civil war.
Oh,
That's
Lord.
what it's
All
going
right, y'all. I saw it's all sort of stuff on social media, and I saw this one parody of that dumbass Herschel Walker, and I just had to play this.
Hi, I am Herschel Walker, and I am running for a campaign. I was just a little baby boy born here in Georgia. And when I was a little baby, I was a little boy. I believe that God made a women's a woman and a man's is a man. A man can't have a baby out his butthole. I played football in the NFL. I am also a sheriff, cop, police officer, and I got my training on Call of Duty. If you want your kids to learn the ABCs and not the LGBTCs, then vote for Herschel Walker. Walker, right?
Herschel Walker isn't really sure if he approves this message or not, but he signed the waiver anyway.
I had to play that one. Now let me also play this right here, y'all. This is a racist ad that Stephen Miller, that white nationalist who was Trump's right-hand man. Y'all, this is an absolute racist ad that is running right now in Georgia. I'm just trying to explain to you how these white nationalists operate. Watch this.
When did racism against white people become okay? Joe Biden put white people last in line for COVID relief funds. Kamala Harris said disaster aid should go to non-white citizens first. Liberal politicians block access to medicine based on skin color. Progressive corporations, airlines, universities all openly discriminate against white Americans. Racism is always wrong. The left's anti-white bigotry must stop. We are all entitled to equal treatment under law. America First Legal paid for this ad. When did racism against white people
Robert,
become okay?
Racist Stephen Miller, his group, those are the ads they run in Georgia right now.
Yeah, I've seen that. I don't think they focus group this correctly, because as a black man, that really makes me want to vote for Joe Biden. I mean, the Joe Biden that they're explaining in that commercial sounds like the Joe Biden that many people have wished that we actually had. The Joe Biden that was really advocating for black people, that was out here fighting every day to give us every right and privilege associated. So I think that in reality, depending on how this is targeted, it may backfire and actually encourage more black people to turn out than encourage the scared white people to turn out to vote for camping for Herschel Walker.
Now, there's an ad, Tammy, that Moms Against Greg Abbott, they've been dropping some major ads the election cycle. Check this one out.
Oh, hey, sweetie, how can I help you?
I read there are babies that totally need homes, so I'd love to adopt one.
That's adorable, but impossible. You're cute. How old are you, 11?
12. and a half.
Excuse me.
If science says I'm old enough to have a baby, hello, period in PE class, I should be able to adopt one, am I right?
No, you're wrong. You've got to provide food, shelter, mental, dental. Do you have proof of income?
Oh, does tooth fairy money count? Well, if I can't take a baby home, what about surrogacy? Wouldn't I look fly pregnant?
Oh my God, no, put that down. Pregnant teens are at high risk for preeclampsia, toxemia, emotional trauma.
Ugh, you're killing my vibe.
Don't be sassing me. Oh God, not again. We do not adopt children.
I was just wondering if you knew where the abortion clinic is.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but the state closed all of them.
Thanks.
I tell you what, Tammy, Moms Against Greg Abbott, they have been going hard this election cycle.
That was good.
They have been going really hard. Our home state of Texas, Roland, and you know the things that are happening in Texas are egregious, and I think Texas is one of the states that are laying the groundwork for other of these red states to follow. So I'm really curious as to see what's going to happen on November 8th.
And speaking of Texas, tomorrow, folks, I will be in Arlington, Texas, with Texas State Representative Jasmine Crockett, Lee Merritt, as well as Deborah Peoples, who's running for Tarrant County Judge. Y'all, come on, go to my iPhone, please. Let's go. Move quickly. Fight for democracy. Thank you very much. We're going to be there tomorrow. Elisa Simmons, Deborah Peoples. We're going to be looking forward to it at the Texas Rangers Golf Club. Taking place from 6 to 9 p.m. We'll be broadcasting the show from 5 to 7. Free food, free drinks, live music. And so come on out to the Texas Rangers Golf Club tomorrow in Arlington, Texas. We'll be on site, on location broadcasting. And we'll be broadcasting from Houston on Friday. I'm getting the information right now where we'll be on Friday. And folks, on Tuesday, election night, we will be live here. Y'all want the best coverage of what happens in this country? All y'all got to do is come right here. We are going to be here from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. Now, ain't nobody else black-owned giving you this amount of election night coverage than us. I saw Byron Allen's Griot. They going to be on for 2 hours. 2 hours ain't nothing. We're going to be on for 6 hours, okay? Black Enterprise ain't doing it. Blavity not doing it. Urban One, TV One, Radio One, they ain't doing it. Ebony's not doing it. We're going to be live, folks. Election night right here on the Black Start Network. Download our app. We're going to be on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, iPhone, Android phone, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Folks, we're going to have extensive coverage. We've got already 45 different panelists who are going to be coming, who are going to be here, going to be in studio. We'll have folks live as well here. The most extensive coverage on election night from a black perspective will be taking place right here on the Black Start Network. Ain't nobody else gonna do it the way we do it. Tell all your friends. I'm gonna be posting the graphic on all social media platforms. And so just so y'all know, and look, I already have old hungry ass Monique, who's normally here on Wednesdays. She canceled today. She actually gonna, let me tell you how silly her ass is, Scott. Your girl gonna send me, she gonna send me a text talking about, please have food on Tuesday. Her little ass sent me a text talking about guacamole, salsa, chips, fajitas, queso, tortillas, and fruit. Monique ass must think she on MSNBC or CNN that night. Cause I
leave her alone.
Obviously, Monique. See, that's what happened when you've been around white media folk for way too long. Because I don't know what the hell is she thinking. Y'all, we got a black caterer.
Oh my gosh.
That's
night. True. You always have.
Always have.
You always have.
Always have. Okay. Yeah. So Carol, what did I approve? I know we're gonna have. Obviously, we're gonna have some fried chicken, some crab cakes.
Crab cakes.
Mac and cheese. Green beans, but the green beans gonna be fixed, not them damn soul food green beans. I can't stand them damn things. They're gonna be fixed with like garlic, olive oil, be a little bit more crispy. Those are the way I like it. I'm paying for this shit, so I don't want.
No, we need some ham hock.
Hey, Scott, shut up.
Green beans without ham hock.
And we're gonna have also red velvet cupcakes as well. And so that's what we're gonna have. I think the drinks we're gonna have. There's probably gonna be some sweet tea in there for these other people. So I'm just letting y'all know.
You gonna have some mixed drinks? You gonna have some liquor?
Oh my God.
Hell no.
Up in there?
Hell no. That's your drunk ass. So that's what we gonna have. So I'm just letting y'all know.
I'm not the guest.
I'm just letting y'all know how we do. So y'all tell everybody. Y'all don't even waste your time with no CNN, MSNBC. We know y'all ain't watching Fox News. Don't even try to waste your time with ABC, CBS, because see, they're going to be throwing in, like a little splash of color every now and then. Well, guess what? We going to be black.
All black.
All damn night.
Hey, Monique's on Twitter on you, boy. You better check your Twitter.
I don't care what Monique's saying on Twitter.
I got your guacamole.
She watched it.
I don't care.
Call her out.
I don't care.
Appreciate it.
I don't care.
Appreciate it.
So we gonna sit here. We gonna sit here, and we gonna do that. So that's how we gonna do it. So y'all, election night, y'all tune in right here on the Black Star Network, and y'all know how we gonna handle our business, and that's the way we do it. So Tuesday, election night, November 8th. We're live, 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. Just like my folks with Black Voters Matter. Where they sit and talk about the blackest bus in town. Hey, that's how we do it. We had the blackest show in town, and that's how we roll. And so I'm just letting y'all know it's gonna be fantastic. Studio's gonna be packed. It's gonna be going. You know what? I need now. See, we gonna get cut off because y'all know me. I have a DJ up in here hitting it in between breaks. That's how we do it. And so Robert would be here. Robert gonna be in Georgia because he don't want to leave his guns. He can't travel with them. So that's why he's not gonna be. That's why he's not gonna be in studio. All right, y'all. Tammy, I appreciate that for coming to the studio. Coming in for the last minute with Monique canceled. Yeah, Monique probably canceled.
You need to leave her alone.
No, she probably canceled because she had some bad damn guacamole.
Leave her alone.
I got
she
you,
had some
Monique.
bad guacamole and queso. That's probably why she canceled. Robert Scott, I appreciate it as well. Hey, folks, that is it for us. Don't forget, download the Black Star Network app. We should pass 50,000 before Tuesday. Y'all, don't make any sense we not past 50,000. Download the app, folks. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Look, I need y'all support. We need 2,000 of our fans contributing at least $50 this month. Listen to me, I'm telling y'all, it's more than 2,000. We had almost 3,000 people who've been watching the show just on YouTube today. And I love, and just so y'all know, it's a whole bunch of trolls, racist trolls, who decided to hop on our YouTube page. And y'all know, I just been blocking these fools and sending them fools to the junkyard. And so that's what we doing. And so y'all know we ain't even worried about these fools. You come on our page talking crazy, then y'all know what's gonna happen. We gonna jack you up. That's how we do it. We gonna jack you up all day, every damn day. That's what we gonna do, okay? All right, so listen up, y'all. Listen up. Your support matters. We need 2,000 of our fans giving at least $50 this month to hit our goal of $100,000. Folks, all the stuff I'm talking about ain't free. You can't broadcast for 6 hours to have 10, 12 people gonna be on set. Look, it's gonna cost me to rent. It's gonna cost me $1,500 to rent additional microphones and audio system for the people here. So it's not like there's no expenses that particular night. And so we need y'all support. Checks and money orders can be sent to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Your support matters. If you're watching right now, y'all can help us out on Cash App. You can send to $RM Unfiltered, $RM RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Jamila Haynes, Aaron Rogers, Larnell Farmers, Trend City Group. Let's see here. James Davis, Olga Me Thompson Lovett, Emmanuel, Strictly Business, Harold Johnson, Wade La Grenade, Danielle Weish, Carolyn Cooper, Louise, Shanna Stevens, Santeresa David, Donald Rush, Perlene Willis, Rodney Williams, let's see, Anthony Lawson, Broderick Bennett, Josephine Turner, Jawan Yvette, Deborah Williams, Dime Lacey, Diam Lacey, thank you so, Fred Childs, Sharice, Tyjir Graham, Cordell McMillan, Fritz, Jean, James King, Lori, Risbrook Oliveira, Jimmy Whitfield. I want to thank all of y'all for giving during the show. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Folks, also download my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at all bookstores. You can download the audio version on Audible. Also order through your favorite black bookstore. That's it. Hold up. Richard Pettigrew just sent in a donation on Cash App. Richard, I appreciate it as well. Let me see here what came in on Zelle. Let me hit, I got to give them a shout out. Timothy Hill, thank you very much for your donation. Kenya Browning, thank you so very much. Brenda Nelson, thanks a lot. Adrian Swan, David Jackson, Michelle Lorraine Henley, and Leon Jackson. Thank you so very much for all of y'all for helping us out. Folks, that's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, live from Arlington, Texas. Holla!
We've got to stand up. Republicans are banning abortion rights, tearing down democracy, blocking progress. But when Democrats stand together, we win. Because we voted, Democrats stood up for black lives, voting to ban police chokeholds, stood up for black women, putting one on the Supreme Court, stood up for our families, lowering cost of health care and prescriptions and capping insulin, and stood up for millions by slashing student debt. This November, let's stand up together and keep making progress.
Know your voting rights. If you are unsure where to vote or don't know if your polling location has changed, call or text 1-866-OUR-VOTE. For more information, call or text 1-866-OUR-VOTE.